hit, you are authorized to fire at will.
IR Professional, it's TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. You guys are in for a treat tonight. I have world famous, world infamous, regionally deviant, um, politically expedient, um, politically unacceptable, troublemaker extraordinary. You guys think that TC's got problems. You have no idea the kind of problems that Wes Lund has, and you guys are going to be in for it tonight. So before we get going too much further, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Check out the bell icon. Make sure you're getting notifications. Share this out, and then when the show is over, come back and reshare it because it helps boost things up in the algorithm. I cannot emphasize that enough. And if you haven't done so yet, if you've already done all of the subscription stuff and you've already done the bell icon thing, go over to that little area that says membership and find a membership level, because it does help the show. It helps the host, the creator, the originator, if you will. It helps me with keeping my content going, because things aren't cheap. If you've been paying any attention, and I know Wes and I will probably talk a little bit about the cost of living in places like the wonderful metro area of Rochester, Minnesota. But if you've been paying any attention to people's Facebook posts here lately, everybody's been sharing different memes and different posts from other people who talk about where they went back 4 years and looked at what they spent on groceries just through Walmart, and have gone back and reordered all of that. And we're seeing anywhere from 150% increase in cost to a 400% increase in cost, depending on your region. So TC appreciates it, even though he talks in the third person and rare occasions. TC appreciates it when you guys go to the membership options here, or if you prefer not to do any business with Google, YouTube, you can go to my Subscribe Star, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, and you can pick a membership level there. We are putting out, my guest, whatever, we are putting out more content as of late, and I am actually processing a video right now that will be up for the members only on YouTube of a conversation that I had with a somewhat local, regional type newspaper reporter when he was covering the crime beat for the Rochester Post-Bulletin. And he and I had a conversation about a year ago, and I recorded that, and that's going to be up for members only here this week sometime. And he's asking me some pretty interesting questions about how my view on law enforcement changed, and apparently seems to change drastically, and not in a radical way. Some people think I'm a radical, but that'll be one of the conversations that's going to be going up there. Now, we're going to bring Wes in. I did not warn Wes that I was going to do this tonight, but we're going to bring Wes in here in a minute. But I want to be upfront and honest about this. Wes and I move in the same circles in many ways. Now, Wes and I had no idea who the other person was during 2020, at the beginning of 2020, when all of this stuff kicked off. The coup stuff, all the measures that were put in place by the state of Minnesota, and especially in a city like Rochester. And so we kind of orbited around each other for a while. And there were times where we found ourselves very well aligned on issues and people that we were talking to and talking about. And there were other times where we found ourselves diverging, because that was the way things were in 2020. They were very interested in having people who had similar views have reasons to distrust one another and to be at odds. with one another. And having never met each other, we just ran across each other through social media. And there were times where we didn't always see eye to eye. And a while back, we just said, "Hey, this is stupid. This is just dumb. What is going on here?" And so Wes and I found out Wes is much smarter than TC. I just want everybody to be aware of that. Wes is an incredibly intelligent person. I think he speaks like 14 languages. I'm not sure. But we have a lot of the same views. Now, that doesn't mean we always see things exactly the same way. But we are aiming at, if you will, shooting for the same outcome. Massive change in a pushback against progressive leftist ideological takeovers in the state of Minnesota, but especially in south central and southeastern Minnesota. And I am of the opinion that when you find an ally in a fight that shares 75 to 85% of your views, you learn from that person and you become willing to work next to that person and alongside that person. And that's where I'm at with Wes. I don't know if there's anything I could teach Wes. I don't know if there's ever anything that Wes has ever gleaned from me or learned from me, but I learn a ton from Wes and watch how he researches and how he digs into issues. Like, I do a lot of research, but in different ways. Mine is taking in lectures, taking in philosophical conversations. Not that Wes doesn't do those things, but Wes is a boots on the ground, a strategically minded individual who is a local activist and has been for a long time, who knows how to follow the trails. That's a little different than what I do. I do that with some things that I work on, especially law enforcement related stuff. But I have learned a ton from Wes. And he will attest that there are times I reach out to him and I go, "What do you think of this?" Or he'll do the same with me. But I will also tell you, do not ever ask Wes for information if you are not ready for the glut of information that will come your way, because he will give it to you. So I'm going to bring him in now. We did not get a chance to do a cam check and a mic check because Wes was probably doing research for the show. But
yeah,
Wes, thank you very much. How was that for an intro?
that's too much. I normally like to decrease expectations and lower them so I don't disappoint people. But you
Oh
have,
no, I love to watch people crash and burn live right here on my show.
well, what an introduction. I'm really on the spot now. So hello, I must be going. I have to have a sense of humor about some of this stuff because there's so much information. If we don't look around and laugh at these times and what we're going through, we're really going to suffer a lot. And probably one of the things that the left doesn't want us to do is be able to laugh at them, because I forget who it was who said that humor is really offensive to the totalitarian mindset, because they can't can it and control it, and they don't even know how to explain it or make a joke. Like, they can't meme. So when you're being joyous and full of energy and life, they really get frustrated. They want you angry, sitting in the corner stewing about something. So maybe
it's funny you bring it up the way that you did because one of my favorite philosophers from a libertarian perspective, and some people are like, "Well, he's not a philosopher," and he actually is. A guy that goes by the name of Dave Smith, and he has a show called Part of the Problem. And he's actually a deeply intellectual libertarian philosopher, but he's also a stand-up comic.
perfect.
And when you listen to him talk about the nature of comedy since cancel culture came in from the left, and let's be honest, the Democrats love cancel culture, but there is a segment
Right.
of the Republicans that love cancel culture too when they can use it against their enemies.
True.
Um, he has he's indicated that like it's been the death of stand-up comedy, really. The lack of humor, because like the whole point of
Yeah.
stand-up comedy is like picking on the sacrosanct, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the untouchables. And if you're not allowed to like touch the untouchables or you lose everything, you lose everything that there is in comedy. That's just it's just the way it
Right.
is.
And the comedy is sourced from painful places, and the comedy, it's what, you need the shit to grow roses. Comedy reaches into pain and what hurts us, and then it sends it up. And when you start making light of the totalitarians and what they're doing to us, then they really feel on edge. That's when they really, they canceled Seinfeld. He couldn't speak at a university graduation. Are you kidding? They would run Dave Chappelle out of town if he showed up. Dave Chappelle, when I was a liberal, I remember buying like all the seasons of the Chappelle show, and I was watching the first couple episodes, and I was
Were
asking
you
myself,
outraged? Were you
yeah,
out?
I was, no, I was concerned. Well, outrage wasn't it, because it was a black guy delivering the comedy. It was a black, so I knew it was okay.
Mm,
As a liberal, then you're like, oh well, this is supposed to be funny. But then I was like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to be laughing at this. I mean, this is comedy that's supposed to be affecting me somehow, or
right.
teaching me something. I mean, liberals are very serious about their comedy, which is why their jokes always break. They
Yeah.
can't
It's
they
like
can't have
whisking your
fun.
eggs too much. It just
But I love the Chappelle show, and then he left the United States for a while and moved to South Africa. And I was talking to a woman who lives in his neighborhood now, a black woman, and she's like, I run into Dave Chappelle all the time. She says, uh he's hilarious. He makes observations about life. Like, he's naturally like that. When he's on the street and you run into Dave Chappelle, he's just cracking jokes all the time. The comedy just flows out of the guy.
who he is.
And in my estimation, he's a conservative.
Um,
He's saying things that people are going
he's
to have a hard time agreeing with if you're a liberal.
he's
He's
he's he's a he's socially conservative. I don't know where he's at on the
Yeah.
economic scale, but he's definitely a
So
social conservative with the things he's willing to point out.
yeah, he'd like to see the family reestablished. He's mocking the fact that the African American, I mean, not mocking, but he's trying to draw attention to the fact that the African American family's been decimated by liberalism and the
Yes.
Democrat urban plantation and the cooperation in destroying, the African family, or normal family ties that people would have had, 50 years ago in the community. And
So
you know, yeah.
let's talk a little bit. I don't want to go into too much detail on it, but let's you tell of your prior life as a liberal, maybe I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
more of a progressive, maybe less classical liberal, more progressive. How long ago was that, and had it been a kind of a lifetime pursuit? And
So
what changed your direction?
that's fascinating. Wow, that's an excellent question, because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. That I came out of DFL roots in Minnesota. I met people who I worked on the 1972 was probably the first campaign. I went door to door knocking for whoever it was. McGovern was running against Richard Nixon and Agnew at the time, I think. And I remember being, I was working with the Jimmy Carter campaign, the Walter Mondale, Geraldine Ferraro campaign. I worked with I sub-caucused with the Jesse Jackson Rainbow Coalition. I I was kind of a Ralph Nader fan. When I was a kid, I was picking.
Who has now also changed himself.
He's changed. So what happened is the Democrats, there's no more farmers in the DFL. There's no more laborers in the DFL. And I think there's no more Democrats in the DFL. They've left America. They've gone so far left. And I don't remember who it was who said that. It might have been Ann Richards. But all of these campaigns, they were just normal people. And there might have been some disagreements about basic like how to institute things, but they weren't trying to set things on fire and jump police officers and defund the police and destroy our military and on and on. They were, I think I was a conservative early on, but this isn't my grandfather's DFL. And, I remember meeting Charles Lindbergh when I was really young and his sister. And just thinking these are interesting people. I just the DFL's gone really far astray. And I would have been a Paul Wellstone guy probably in 2007 or 8. In that period of time, I would have voted for Hillary Clinton at that point, before she was in the State Department and destroyed the Middle East and destroyed Egypt and of course the whole Mediterranean basin. But Hillary Clinton is an anathema to classical liberalism, I think. And I'm not being conspiratorial about that at all. She was on the committee to investigate the president, and Hillary Clinton was the only person who did not receive a letter of recommendation from the lead attorney to investigate Richard Nixon. So that's sort of a fascinating point that I learned kind of later reading about Nixon, because he's a fascinating character, and I enjoy reading about the Vietnam War and so forth. But I like military.
So you're campaigning for, campaigning for and then watching as this party that you kind of grew up as a part of, is departing from Minnesota style values. And many people are staying in it. And so in the early 2000s, you're out there going, these people don't represent me. Not like, I don't know if they ever did, but they darn sure don't now.
They sure don't. I would have been a Minnesota public interest research type character. I would have been right there with, I remember walking beans with Mexican migrant workers who were with the Cesar Chavez union people in the 70s. And that's like the first time in real life I heard Spanish, and I became interested in learning Spanish. But first I learned French. But I was, detasseling corn and shoveling pig shit when I was a kid. And it was really, those were really instrumental lessons for me, like about hard work. And then, my first jobs were working in restaurants and washing dishes. I was probably too young. They used to pay us a packet of money at the end of the week, like in cash. But that was all real instrumental to my, like the development of who I was. I would sell cards. We were poor and we didn't know we were poor. I would sell greeting cards door to door, and you know how they'd give you $1 per box, and then if you sold 100 boxes, they would send you like a packet of sea monkeys or some prize. You'd get an extra prize because you sold a bunch of boxes. And I wasn't very good at it, but I tried being a paper boy for a while too. But it was hard collecting money from people who didn't have any money, and their houses were horrible, screen doors falling off the hinges. And we were all poor in those days, and we didn't know it. We didn't think we deserved something. And you never looked at other people and thought, the reason I have less is because that guy has more. Right. And you never said, I need to take away from what that guy has so that I can have more. There was never this concept of I'm deserving of somebody else's value. And what the Democrats have done in recent times with these whole like controlling basic universal income of like House File 2666, which is a good number for it, but wanting to. Yeah. So you take away from something. So you think you're being Robin Hood by taking money out of somebody else's paycheck, and you're going to be Robin Hood passing it out, but actually you be Robin to Hood. Okay. And you're,
I knew there would be a Wesism early on.
yeah, it's coming in. Sorry. I've used that one before. So it's the delivery's getting a little better. But no, that one is, it's serious though, because how can you believe that taxation is anything else but theft? It's not yours to give as a legislator. It's not yours to take. And then to create universal basic income just seems like a weird thing, but they go further than that, you know.
Oh, for sure.
The
So
House File 19, yeah.
What was the straw that finally caused you to kick yourself out of the DFL and really start looking at the Republican Party in Minnesota?
Well, when I started, so I would never have voted for Mitt Romney. I would never have voted for John McCain. And they rolled Kerry out of mothballs. I forget what year that was, but they dragged the John Kerry battleship out of mothballs and rolled him out. And John Kerry reporting for duty. And I was like, this guy is not a Democrat. And there were others that didn't fit the bill. It was probably around the economic reset of 2007, 2008, when I saw what the kids were doing with the Wall Street thing. I probably would have voted for what's his name, Bernie Sanders back then, if they hadn't stolen it from him. I have a very strange. I'm sorry. This is can we rewind and start over? But I would have. Those were very. That was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. What woke me up? There's a comedian out of England named Pat Condell, and I think it's probably that comedian who radicalized me the most, because his dry, understated sense of British humor, he was able to unpack really difficult social issues and set it out and make me laugh, kind of Will Rogers style, if you will. And it's that sense of humor that's just got me thinking, maybe things aren't so good, and maybe our civilization and our way of life and the values we have, maybe all of this is under a subtle attack. And that was powerful for me. I think it's probably Pat Condell slipping in there into my I sought out more and more of his videos. And then of course there was a British philosopher. There's been several British people who made me think about these things. They were all termed radicalizers. By 2015 and 2016, most of these people were being kicked off of YouTube. And of course, now we're at the point where Marine Le Pen has won the French elections, and every prefecture every directorate in France has gone to the Conservative Party. Of course, the liberal media is calling it the far right. The far right, yeah. With the German accent, and you say the far right. But no, she wants her nation to survive. She loves France, and I think it was
a lot to love there.
A lot to love. French culture is delicious. It's absolutely beautiful. And the Europeans generally don't deserve what's happening to them right now. And so I have another confession to make. I voted for Barack Hussein Obama twice. And
boy, you did make a hard change.
Yeah. So President Trump is the first Republican candidate, first Republican I ever voted for in my life. And what woke me up to the fact that he's different is that the Republicans themselves didn't like him. The Bush family is extremely problematic. And when they started rolling out, Jeb Bush, that was, we all came through George W. Bush. That was a fiasco. Barack Obama was elected because George Bush couldn't finish a sentence, right? And then it was the neocons with George Bush. Everybody was, let's have endless wars. If you were against war, then you weren't supporting the troops, and they're sending people to bleed out in Afghanistan and Iraq and countries that never messed around with us at all. and we're sending these people to forever wars. And Trump is talking about ending all of that. With the Bush family, it was all about Paul Wolfowitz, Donald Rumsfeld,
It was where
David
can we find
Pearl.
another place to send more people to die is what that
Right,
was more.
right.
So you
So
have this
Beatnik.
change, you have this sea change, this fundamental sea change where you're like, Barack Obama to Donald Trump. And
Yeah,
and as
it's
that
strange.
changes, as that changes for you, you become like you were active before, but your level of activism, something was triggered in you philosophically and intellectually, where you started to really see and call out the hardcore progressive left in a way that a lot of, dare I say, there weren't a lot of us doing it. There were some of us, you and me and a few others, but most people, even in 2020 when that viral thing was happening, a lot of people were just like, "Oh, this isn't about politics."
Ah,
And and I know that early on you were on the forefront of calling it out. I know I was for sure. I mean, it caused me no end of consternation um in my own life.
yeah.
Were people taken aback by that fundamental change in you that you would go from, voting for a Barack Hussein Obama to voting for a Donald Trump and calling out the untouchable Kim Norton? Because Kim Young Norton is kind of everybody's beloved, sugar baby for Rochester. I mean,
Sugar baby.
she's non-political. She's
Right.
nonpartisan. She's just about Rochester. And
She's about
how
good
much guff
governance.
did you take? Because you came out on her. You came out for her hard in 2020.
Yeah, those were strange days. Because I did lose friends. I lost lifelong friends over the Trump situation, and my experience goes back to what a lot of other people have shared sometimes too. Is that there were friendships lost over the Trump thing, and him coming along, sort of a guy who's going to fight for America instead of the corporate interests and the globalist interests. That now I could talk about the Kim Norton stuff, and that's been spoken about like until we're all blue in the face. And a lot of people see her for what she is now, and she's a self-serving internationalist and a globalist, and she spent a lot of time with her Bloomberg friends. And we have Bloomberg advisors now in Rochester. We're expected to foot the bill for these kids are supposed to be interns, but Norton wants to have a certain amount of money set aside for their maintenance. So like we're paying to quarter the enemy in in our homes, and
So much
she's
for the Third Amendment.
thank you. And she spends a lot of time with her German masters, and that's all about the Green Party and the Germans that are giving her energy advice at the same time that they've walked away from their own policies in the last year and a half, 2 years. She doesn't seem to uh, pay attention to what's actually happened with
Well,
German politics or European politics. The entire continent has rejected. You've got Nigel Farage entering the British race now, and the Spanish have rejected classical. It's not classical liberalism. It's the
it's progressive. It's
progressive.
progressive. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
liberalism.
different thing. Yeah. So everybody's walking away from what Kim Norton's holding on to. She doesn't seem to want to accept that the memo has been sent out. That
Don't you think though that she's actually a reflection of the same mentality that's permeated Minneapolis and especially St. Paul at the state capitol? I mean, she's not an odd duck in Minnesota. She's just an odd duck in in the circles that she used to run in or still runs in politically overseas. But she's not an odd duck in Minnesota because they just keep doubling down. Like, it's not
Right.
working, so we have to do it harder.
It's like a Maoist struggle session, and we've got these communist. It's crazy it's like, well, what is this, the 1950s? No, we've got communist groups operating in Minneapolis, and Shining Path is here, and Mayor Norton, one of her besties, was Betsy Hodges, who famously wore the hijab over her. She would wear the head covering, and when she was finally removed from office and they marched her out, they didn't frog march her, they probably should, but Betsy Hodges, her chief city administrator, Anissa Hollingshead, came to Rochester for about a little bit less than a year. But I consider her to have been sort of a refugee from the Betsy Hodges regime. This is just prior to Jacob Frey coming to power in Minneapolis. But we had Anissa Hollingshead here, and now she's moved on to Colorado, greener pastures, where she can start all over again.
And look what they're doing in Colorado.
Yep. That used to be a red state.
Yeah, that state has been. People talk about it as if it's accidental, and I'm like, it's not. It's calculated. They do it like it is a calculated move, and it's exactly what they pulled off in Minnesota. Other than Minnesota, and this, it is one of the few states that has been consistently moving to the left for a very long time. Just over the last 8 years, it's gotten incredibly rapid in its shift because they've gained a lot of power. But it's been calculated. They funneled money and people into Minnesota for that end. And I'm not talking about immigration. I'm talking about political power players that they have brought in, and Rochester was their target, one of their targets for a long time.
But just on that point, funny you should mention that, because I've been digging deep into one of the big money power groups, and these are just 3 of their tax documents from 2019, 2020, and 2021, and this is about Isaiah, Minnesota. Isaiah, Minnesota. I go back and I dig up the tax documents because you can discover who's giving money to these groups. Isaiah, Minnesota is the most powerful political organization in Minnesota that you don't know about. I would say it's more powerful than the Council on American Islamic Relations under Jelani, and definitely more powerful than the GOP. This organization has about $8 million to spend per year to run down, like they run down their budget, but they have a fundraiser, a person in Berkeley, California named Judith Barish, I believe the name is, and she makes $72,000 a year just replenishing their financial war chest. What she's able to raise in money for this Isaiah, Minnesota, out of Berkeley, California, is astonishing, because this group has the boku bucks to spend, and they do spend it, and they end up filibustering the Rochester City Council meetings. And this political 501c3, they end up filibustering the Rochester ISD 535 school board meetings, and their tax documents. You got to read it and weep, because
you can link these people to the broader organization.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that because I don't believe you. I know that you can, but I want people to hear this. Like these aren't reaches; they're actual links. These are actual links.
Actual direct links. So they, for instance, just one person they pay to operate in Rochester is a political activist named Olivia Bergen. And I don't make any money. I wish I could make the money. I'm, you know,
Right.
the cake, the money that these people have. Olivia Bergen is from Massachusetts, born and raised in Massachusetts, New York University educated, spent a lot of time in the Middle East, um, wearing, donning the cloth, if you will, because Isaiah, Minnesota, it's not a Jewish group, it's not a Christian group. It's really about the promotion of Islam. But we're not being Islamophobic per se. I'm just saying that there's a lot of money to bring in Lutheran pastors with, the kind with the big man bun back here, and the Methodist pastors with the man bun, and they come in and they speak on the microphones and they hand wring about issues that nobody is supposed to disagree with, like affordable housing or
Right,
some.
because how do you disagree with these things? How can you possibly be so cold-hearted and so heartless as to,
Right.
like, everybody should be able to afford a house, right?
Yeah,
As
I
they
want
as they tear down all the affordable housing to make room for one of your favorite projects, which is, of course, DMC.
exactly, and to stack people up, to rip down all the houses that were once affordable and build chicken coops that are these vertical, they're just these nobody wants to smell what other people are smoking or cooking for dinner. And these high-rise apartments, there's a lot of issues going on with safety and whatnot. But hey, if it's about urbanization and 15-minute cities and population density, which is what they want, they will build the housing, and it's like, if you build it, they will come, because they'll parachute the people in later who are
They'll make sure
overflowing.
there are bodies to fill those holes.
Right. So unfortunately, it's the local kids that are working 3 part-time jobs, and they don't have health care, and they see half of their wages disappear in deductions from their paycheck. Those kids don't get any affordable housing. The affordable housing's for, it's a plan to institute, diversity, inclusion, and equity, and so forth. So it's a pressure cooker release for the Democrat urban plantations in parts of the United States where the DFL machine is falling apart.
Well,
So they have to export the
right.
bodies, and they have programs for transferring anyway.
Well, no, I think that's a great segue though for us, because one of the topics that you talk an awful lot about are groups like Isaiah, Isaiah, Minnesota, but CERT. So people know
oh
in
yeah,
Rochester we have CERT, CERT. What's
yeah.
that?
Uh, uh,
Crime, no,
Community Emergency Response Team.
response team. Yeah, Community Emergency
They,
Response Team.
they stole the
So
acronym directly from Homeland Security. I met a Homeland Security guy in the Twin Cities on Thursday and Friday, prior to the bust that happened at a certain nightclub in Rochester. And I met this guy, and we were standing on the steps of the St. Paul Capitol, and I said, yeah, well, we got this CERT team, blah, blah, blah. And he gets really gruff with me. And he goes, well, what are you putting down CERT for? He's a LE, right? He's a straight up law enforcement guy. Good, like, and a good guy. You'd wanna hang out with him. He goes, what are you putting down the CERT team? I said, oh no, wait a minute. You don't
you don't know what CERT is.
I know you think you know what CERT is because you're in Homeland Security, but I opened up my phone and I showed him what the CERT team was about. His eyes got like saucers, and he's like, what? And that conversation was like Thursday and Friday. And Friday on the steps of Thursday was the main part on the steps of the Capitol. And that weekend, one of the big nightclubs in Rochester got shut down. And there were nine felonies that came out. They got them on taxes. But for a long time, I've been talking with school board members about what it means to the community here in Rochester to have a place where, things are going on that aren't exactly kosher and stuff. But, can I share a last thing? Yeah, go ahead.
So part of the problem with CERT is a little bit of what you were saying before about these collapsing, Democrat strongholds all across the country. And one of them, of course, being Chicago. And the link that I was making with CERT and that is that we're seeing people with criminal histories end up on the CERT in the CERT groups. And many of them are from, well, in one case, there's credible links to problematic individuals, if you will, that did come here to flee their criminal history in Chicago. Not flee it like trying to start a new life, but literally fleeing the trouble that they've gotten themselves into, only to come up here, get in more trouble, and then put on this emergency response team, which is only, and I think for us together, our greatest interaction on that particular issue goes back to January of 2023 when they had the town hall meeting for the local DFL office holders, and they had CERT there to run security for them to try and run off the public.
Yeah, that was. Sorry. I forgot all about that because that was just like a too much in your face demonstration of what these people are able to get away with. and the coordination with the Rochester Police Department at the time, it was really embarrassing for the good police officers, and some of them, it was around the time police officers said to me, we need you to go to city council meetings and start talking about this because we can't do anything about it. And that was when I got a little bit louder and a little bit more ignorant on the microphone at city council and with the school board, because there were contracts. They were going to remove the LE and the school officer response team from the Rochester Public Schools. There was talk about replacing them with CERT team members. And then, of course, that summer around that time, the Olmsted County contracted with the CERT team, the same group of people, to police the Olmsted County Fair. And it was a big, it's not necessarily their fault.
That's when they started having the nightly riots.
Yeah, it got really bad that summer. There's always fights apparently at the fair, but I don't know. But that summer there were fights that spilled into is it 3rd Avenue off the side, and the fight involved, it was a huge melee, and nobody knows the motivation, or we never get a follow-up story explaining, like the guy who, may he rest in peace, the guy who turned up dead at the KAAL television station, who was chased down by like 4 branches of law enforcement, including the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the Sheriff's Department, the Minnesota State Troopers, and the Rochester Police Department. Everybody ends up in front of KAAL television, and we never get a follow-up story
why that happened.
No, never an explanation, who he wanted to talk to, what was the story he wanted to convey, what was he trying to say. And you remember, like 3 months later, we had this magic word turn up on the bridge next to Century High School. It was the N-word in graffiti up there on the bridge. And I spoke
not even
about
graffiti.
That.
Come on, Wes, you're better than that. It was red Solo cups, which
it would have been a hate crime if it was white people who had done it. But
the problem is everybody we can't get any answers. We can't get any answers. We don't know.
No,
we don't know who did. We know, but we don't know who did it.
And the community knew. The thing is, the community knew, and after the police investigation, blah blah blah, it was these three 16-year-olds and one 17-year-old from Mayo High School, and everybody heard about it right away. Like the whole town was abuzz with the news, but it took law enforcement like a couple weeks,
2 months.
2 months. Yeah, thanks.
Almost 2 months.
And do you remember I did an offer of $1,000 to
Yes.
catch
Yeah, and a former mayoral candidate joined you and offered another 1,000.
yeah, and another business owner chipped in another $200. So it turned out $2,200. But who was making money off of that? The people making money, it was the NAACP. Mayor Norton had a conference up there with Dr. Kent Peckel and all of the school board lefties and
Within
several
days. Within
Wendell Olmsted's. I mean, I was on the phone with Wendell Olmsted's a couple of times, and I said, "This is not right. This is not correct." And man, it was a joke.
It was
And
2 days after the story broke. 2
yeah,
days after the story broke that Chief Franklin and Sheriff Kevin Torgerson
right,
got together for a town hall meeting
right.
to talk about what they were going to do to end racism in
Oh,
Rochester. To end
racism.
racism in Rochester. And folks, like, if you're gonna hate somebody based strictly on nothing other than an immutable characteristic that they have, their melanin count, whatever it might be, you have serious mental health issues of your own. You have
Right.
serious intellectual issues of your own. But without any answers, without any research, without any investigation, the two leading law enforcement officers in southeast Minnesota
Yeah.
rushed out to virtue signal about all that they were going to do to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. And then they wasted thousands of dollars
Yes.
investigating a prank. A prank. That's all it was. It was a prank that got stopped literally within minutes because a state trooper happened to be driving by and saw
Thank
it,
you.
crapped his pants, jumped out of his car, went up and took it all down, and we spent thousands of taxpayer dollars to investigate and to have it turned over to the Olmsted County Attorney's Office for potential prosecution. I'm sorry.
Then he dropped all the charges, and he said, "Yeah." Then Mark Ostrom, Attorney Ostrom, dropped all the charges against these people after putting the blanket cover over racism in Rochester, and the CERT team and the barbershop group, along with Lisa Ross. Lisa Ross collected a lot of names that night, a lot of names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails. How do I know that? Because I was standing with her. I ran up there after work to Century High School. I charged right in there afterwards. Everybody saw me coming, and it was like, "Oh, okay. So everybody, thanks for coming. The meeting's over." And I stood right.
So you're now getting the TC treatment.
Yeah. And I was talking to Lisa Ross about a lot of stuff that night, and I said, "This is bogus. People are already talking about who did it. And it's not some white people that did this." And as I'm talking to her near the exit, up walks an individual, one of her comrades, with a thick bunch of sign-in sheets. They must have had 250 or 300 people come to that fundraiser, political action thing that night. And I was just if I had to do something about it at that point, because if I hadn't, they would have ridden that right into November. They were prepared to keep that nonsense narrative going right through into November. And it was complete bullshit.
And that's a little bit, Wes, I know, going back to that event in January of 2023 at the college, you had said something to me, and I had several people approach me afterwards, and this all ties into CERT, but you indicated, like, along with others, that you did not realize just how compromised things like CERT and the political agenda had made law enforcement in the area until you saw how quickly they responded to run off those dangerous conservative protesters at a college campus. I remember how shocked you were at the response that we were getting. Well, I watched it play out on your face. You were like, what?
I
Because
was
these are
still,
people that you knew,
yeah, I was,
and you were like, how are they doing this to us?
and I'm standing there and I'm sitting there going, when I saw, okay, so I was outside for most of it, which is why they had to change their narratives, because they thought I was on the outside. They had you and I confused in the narratives. They had us mixed up. And I was outside and I had not intended to go inside, but after everybody went inside, I thought, well, I'll go see what's happening. I went in and I saw CERT team members fist bumping police officers.
Yep.
And I saw that at Century High School too. I saw them all chummy with each other.
Yep.
And I thought, this is really,
Look,
this is just screwed up.
People do not understand that this is when,
Yeah.
you know, and you know this, and you know why I say the things I say about police and law enforcement accountability is they're supposed to be neutral. And they're not supposed to take sides. And I've known for a long time that they do. But going back to the college situation, I watched them protect the university president who was aggressive towards me and was adamant that he was going to run people out. And it was only because you and I and a couple of others stood our ground and said, you're not doing that, I got him on camera saying, well, we technically can't really get rid of them. We can't run them out. But they were looking for a cause. And it was, I will say it wasn't strictly motivated by Rochester Police Department.
No,
they were willing to do it. They were willing to do it, which is bad enough.
Right.
But it was motivated by the political agenda of both the university president. I'm going to flat out say he's got an agenda, but more than anything, by the presence of CERT there. And that's what CERT is for. CERT is there to enforce an agenda. Period.
Yeah. When I went outside, so I was standing there around the perimeter. I saw CERT team members arrayed around the perimeter, and I was watching the 4 Democrats up on the stage, because Democrats can use all these spaces. Conservatives can never use these spaces. It's just not possible to do bookings. That's a whole nother hour-long conversation. But I was looking around the room, and then I realized at one point that the police force had withdrawn, and a group of CERT team members they were standing with were gone. And that just struck me as a little bit odd that they were suddenly pulled out of the room. And I don't know what it was, but I want to attribute it to some blessing that was given to me. I had the inspiration to go outside and just call it quits. I went outside and I was filming.
You had to get to work. I remember you told me, I got to get to work.
Yeah, I had to go in. So I was going to close out the live stream. I have all these recordings and they're all downloaded too. And there's many more recordings that exist that have never been shared with the public. There's body cam footage of what was going on in that room that was never released yet. And
I've got it too. But they redact the crap out of it, so you can't hardly hear half of what they're saying.
Right. They want their evidence to disappear. So I was filming outside and getting ready to say goodbye, and over my shoulder there's movement next to my car. And here comes there's a police car blocking my vehicle, and Lisa Ross is outside my vehicle. And I remember being really astonished and, kind of frightened what's going on here. So I ended up filming that little interaction. That's for posterity. But I don't know what was going on next to my vehicle, or I had flags on my car that day. I had 4 American flags, and the American flags are very triggering for leftists. So I ended up going to my vehicle. I made it to work, and I did the rest of my day. But it's let it be a warning to everybody that leftists from now until November, for the next 125 days, I guess 120 days. They will do anything to create an agenda of fear or lies or intimidation. I've had to work some things out with people I trust, well, maybe not trust is the wrong word, but people I can still talk to in law enforcement to say, we need to be in touch. We need to communicate, because if you have people calling you saying that, they're putting some false narrative out there and they want to have police officers come and stand at a polling station. That was, law enforcement told me that in the last election, there were there were individuals calling them, claiming that they were
Intimidation.
afraid.
Yep.
Yeah. So they wanted to bring police officers and law enforcement to the polling stations, and law enforcement said, we don't do that. That's not American.
That's a bad look. That's
a bad look. That's a very bad look.
That's a very bad look.
I've said to law enforcement, please maintain records of who it is that's calling you and spinning a false narrative. So you need to take down the phone numbers if they're an anonymous caller, or write down their names if they're willing to be recorded. But let's all pay attention. Let's keep calmer heads, because I'm sorry I'm getting loud and ignorant here, but this is really important. They're going to set people up for things. Look at what they did in the last couple elections. So.
No, I think it's I have seen video of stuff in Rochester of shenanigans with packages being brought in by like election judges and observers, like election judges working as observers ultimately have video of people bringing things in large purses and backpacks and calling it out and getting told, oh, that's none of your business, don't ask questions, and then being escorted from the rooms. So that stuff does happen, and that's the whole point of CERT. They want CERT to work in that capacity, and then to get CERT to be teamed up with and partnered up with law enforcement to get them very used to working together, so that it becomes a finely molded and enmeshed team, so that they have this natural flow and trust for one another, so that if CERT says, hey, this is what's going on, law enforcement, especially the administration and leadership, says, hey, look, CERT's telling us this is happening, we need to do something about it. And so that the reason I bring all of this stuff up is I wanted people to hear, like, you're an observer, you do research, and you've shown me that or shown the audience that with holding up the stuff for Isaiah, Minnesota, and talking about these names, bringing up the fact that we've got Bloomberg interns, sitting in what used to be offices for actual staff,
right,
for the city of Rochester. And they're getting pushed off, kind of like in the movie Office Space, but it's my stapler.
That's exactly it, because the city council members had to abandon their offices on the second floor, move up to the third floor, because the Bloomberg children need the offices on the second floor, and the city council members,
to the Madam Mayor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. She keeps right.
So something strange happened. Not only did you go from being maybe closer to a classical liberal, maybe somewhat leftist ideology, to voting for Donald Trump, to recognizing that the exact same problems that had permeated the Democrats have permeated the Republican Party in Minnesota. And everybody knows I have no problem. I will call out Democrats and Republicans. It don't matter. Everybody knows where I stand. I'll call out anybody in any political party if they're saying something stupid. Right. I'm talking to you, Chase Oliver, if you're listening, which I know you're not. But you were in on the ground floor of the fight to take back the first congressional district party.
Oh, yeah.
Portion of the party, as well as the county party for Olmsted County.
Yeah.
So much so that now here you sit as the endorsed candidate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really don't want to be there, but I was helping Jim Hagedorn back in the day. I saw what Isaiah, Minnesota did to him and all of the other. It's funny because one of the documents I laid out was it's dog-eared now, but this is the Rochester Post Bulletin from way back in 2019 when Isaiah, Minnesota, the so-called faith group, was trailing Jim Hagedorn, and this is when the CD1 spread from the Mississippi River all the way to the South Dakota border. And so they were following him, and they had a well-organized campaign to disrupt.
They were campaign stalking him, weren't they?
They were campaign stalking him, and they were trolling him all across the state. And it really wasn't nice because they would interrupt. There's a lot of video of what they were doing. They don't realize this, but we have a lot of video of what specific activists were doing from groups like Indivisibles. Groups, these groups operate out of Rochester churches, strangely enough.
Yep.
They're so-called faith groups. They work out of Mayor Norton's Unitarian Universalist, meeting center, a political
whatever that
club,
thing is,
whatever it is. It is, yeah, it is what it is. They meet there, and they have Isaiah, Minnesota, with these DFL sponsored groups, and groups like Faith in Minnesota. That's one of their new sister organizations, and other nonprofits. There's a lot of money in these groups, by the way. I mean, here's a list of transactions between Olivia Bergen and the DFL money girl, Alita Baroud, in this area. Alita Baroud is the pipeline conduit for a lot of cash. And
keep that up there.
That she's famous for the money trail, and she a lot of these cash transactions, I posted this online too. This is just one example of cash transactions between Olivia Bergen and DFL at the state party level. There's a lot of money, and you're talking about disbursements like 2-3 times a month of $1,800 or $2,000. It's a lot of money. It pays to be a Democrat. So
I need in on that.
I want. I mean, can I get some of that money too? I guess I can pretend to be.
I would settle. I would settle for 3 or 4 of the people that are watching just to hit me with a super chat or go over and join my memberships. Actually, I mean, I would take that. $1,800 would be nice, but I'll settle for memberships. I don't.
That's right. Like sign up for something, share it out. If you can't afford, if you're watching, let's say you can't afford because times are hard, and somebody, if you're watching this, why don't you, if you can't buy a membership in the channel, how about you share it out with 100 people? And 100 people around the world, because maybe some of that will boomerang back into the local. You might reach somebody in Florida or Arizona or Texas who knows somebody in another part of Minnesota, so that information boomerangs. And so you can help that way. Let's give the Minnesota Public Radio stuff. If this is the sort of you got to do it with a different voice though. If this is the sort of programming that you've come to expect and enjoy from the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, why not take out a membership today?
You have to talk like this, Wes, with your very airy voice.
Oh, that's right, with the salty balls.
If you enjoy the content of this show, then you must.
Right.
We are a nonprofit. I make no money at this, but if you join today, you are supporting true news.
And we have membership benefits as well. I believe there's a coffee cup you can have, or a T-shirt, if you join at a higher membership level.
And you can have a bag of sweaty balls.
That's right, the sweaty balls and the salty balls. And
anyway, we're terrible people, Wes. We're terrible. I'm telling you.
They're making fun of us. Somebody tell them to stop talking.
So you helped take the party back on a more local basis, and
a little bit, yeah. But
I mean, there's still some struggles, obviously. I mean, look at what they did to Wendy Phillips and
birthing pains. But
so Wendy lost her executive committee position over lies, and
the fight.
But she's still out there fighting. But you still managed to get the nomination or the endorsement for our Minnesota House District 25B, and that's not. that is not an easy thing to do, to be, and I'm not picking on you, but to be kind of a relative latecomer, or excuse me, a relative newcomer to
Yeah,
what's supposed to be conservative traditional values in
yeah,
Minnesota,
yeah.
represented by, because
Mhm.
you're not a pure, you're definitely
No,
rocks and cows in a lot of respects, but
yeah.
you're not the quintessential, well, my dad was a Republican and my mom was a Republican and we always voted Republican, so I just vote Republican because we're Republican. You actually have, if people actually take the time to get to know you, you actually kind of have some a little bit more traditional libertarian leanings
Hmm.
on a lot of issues, and you're definitely an adherent to natural rights, even if it's an uncomfortable position to take when speaking to Republicans. And everybody's like, "Well, the Republicans are the party of natural rights and liberty." I'm like, and so
That's interesting feedback. I appreciate that analysis because that helps me see myself from the
it
outside a
helps you
little bit.
change to get elected. That's what.
Well, I think realistically, and again, to lower expectations, I don't think I stand a chance because the spread is so wide. I mean, point wise, and this is a liberal town. I understand. I believe that if people look at the bills that Andy Smith stood on, if they look at the way that he was propped up in politics from Hollywood, California, that's not playing a nativist bent. I would have loved to see a little coffee shop that had Kurosawa films and Satyajit Ray film festivals, and Saturday morning Laurel and Hardy and the silent
Well,
film
you are cultured, so I
Buster
mean,
Keaton.
contrary.
But yeah, bring it. Let's do opera night. Right. But
A
he
nice jazz club, an actual
yeah,
nice jazz
yeah,
club.
a venue for actual musicians, like have some
Yeah.
okay, all of that. I would have loved to have had the opportunity that Andy Smith had presented to him to run a business establishment in my neighborhood. And I was excited thinking, wow, this is a great
I
idea, little movie.
you
But
said you
but
said to run a business establishment, and I think you missed a couple of words. I think you meant run a business establishment into the ground. I think that's what you were.
you know more than I thought you did. So you've heard about some of this because yeah, he
I pay attention to you, Wes, believe it or not.
oh wow. Okay, thank you. Because I feel like I'm in an echo chamber sometimes with the I keep posting information and we see a lot of our stuff. You have this problem, I'm sure too. You just get memory hold. I mean,
I I try not to share your stuff, not because I don't like it, but I want you to have credibility.
yeah.
I'm afraid if I start to share your stuff, your what's left of your credibility is right out the window.
Well,
So
I don't just to think that I mean I've never met Governor Walz, but that Governor Walz came to Andy Smith, said he's a genius businessman. Uh Senator Tina Smith went through their big conferences. The Post Bulletin held him up. Kim Hicks, Liz Bolden. So Kim Hicks, Representative Kim Hicks, Senator Liz Bolden, Representative Tina Liebling. I think she distanced herself a little bit from those events. I don't know what she knew. I don't know. But there were a lot of DFL people that went through the Blue Duck, Gray Duck, the Gray Duck Mystery Theater, Mystery Theater 3000.
well, there's a
And
mystery there, all right.
yeah, there's a mystery. There's some comedy material there too. Let's sit in the front row and throw apples and cabbages. Because the guy, he got elected and then he called up and said he didn't want to be a movie theater guy anymore. A lot of money was spent on that building. A lot of money doing a build out for a guy who went out of business and he went
In
bankrupt. And
prime
how?
real estate downtown.
Yeah,
Prime real
if
estate.
you're not right, like if it let's say it's August, if you don't know that you're going out of business in August, if you don't know that you're in trouble like the next month or within the 3 month within the quarter, what kind of a businessman are you? Or if you
Yeah.
didn't know, then you're still a loser businessman. But to have everybody say that you're a genius and then you go out of business, it doesn't make any sense. And they
Well,
use that theater.
the terrible thing about it is too is that like you're saying is it did just happen. It was just like out of the blue, like after he's running for office, the election comes around, all of a sudden, I'm losing it. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I campaign too hard. And that's your candidate that you're running against. That's the guy that you're running against. And admittedly, it's an uphill battle. But how, as you're
Well,
fighting this, as you talk to
yeah.
people, how are you being received by Republicans or maybe not traditional Republicans, but just more conservative people? Are they saying, "Hey, we're glad you're running"? Do they like, "Who the hell are you?"
Yeah.
Like,
They say, "Who do you
yeah.
think you are?" And stop running a smear campaign. You're running a smear campaign. I said, well, the after he went bankrupt, the DFL put him on the finance committee in St. Paul. So now and then they go, what? Yeah. So he fell upstairs like Joseph Biden. He succeeded at failing. And
Is
but I'm not.
is that not emblematic of the normie? My affectionate euphemistic referral for these people are the normie cons. They think they're conservatives because that like they're not those guys. I'm not that, so I
Well,
must be a conservative. But that's the normative response from these people, which
right.
is stop being mean. Just run a clean campaign. And I'm like,
Right.
have you not watched for the
Yeah.
last like how many election cycles? You
You
can't.
could say to them,
Playing nice doesn't do it.
they changed your damn flag. Okay. They changed your flag. What else can they do? Well, they got universal basic income. They've got they legalized marijuana. Which look, if you're you know what I
I
mean.
know, no. Like
Well,
there are
enjoy it
varying
in your
views on it.
basement, your garage, but you shouldn't have to explain to your kid what that smell is when you're driving downtown. I mean, I don't know. There's a point in life where kids need to be confronted with these difficult choices, but they legalized marijuana without having any strictures in municipalities for where it can be consumed and where it can't be consumed. So it can be anywhere now. You can't.
Well, you and I both know that
The police dogs.
the only reason that they did that was because they wanted the tax dollars. That's it. That's the
Yep.
only reason. If they were
And so
genuinely interested in a liberty type mindset, they'd be like, we're not going to have any restrictions and no tax on it, but you're not going to smoke it in public, just like you're not going to open a can of beer and walk down the street.
thank you. That's
That's
all.
it.
That's exactly the point. And so then the paint law. You can't use a can of paint to improve
Yeah,
your
was it like a
bedroom.
50-gallon? You can't buy a 50-gallon or something. Just a ridiculous, like.
You need a license to be you need a license from the University of Minnesota in paintology, paint studies, and it's probably nothing to do with the art department. But House File 4393 was a shocker. That's for sports teams and boys and girls sharing the showers and the bathrooms and sharing hotel rooms or motel rooms on school trips, or and then there's the dam destruction bill, House File 3462, that puts us like 23 or 28 million dollars. I mean, $1 million here and $1 million there, who's counting after a while, but puts us in debt 23 million bucks to destroy the Silver Lake Dam, which after the rainstorms we've had for the last couple of weeks, you'd think, hey, let's look at that again. Maybe a dam is critical infrastructure along with bridges and so forth, but there's just by the way, there's $500 million in fraud, waste, and abuse. It's not just the Feeding Our Future fraud now. It's the elder nutrition program. Right. So the elderly nutrition program, the ripoff there is similar to the daycare fraud, where they claimed they were delivering meals to people who weren't getting the food, and that's just evil. The Democrats want us to fully fund everything, but we have funded it fully, and then they defraud us. There's a lot of alliteration going on there, but
I like your alliteration. That's a. You must be a Baptist.
That's right, friend. I gotta slip into the twang there, but it just gets tiring, doesn't it? because
So,
that seems like I'm being negative, but I'm just trying to let people see the lay of the land, the political exigencies that led us to this point. We can't be
look,
nice anymore because Minnesota nice is Minnesota
if
stupid.
if people think that calling out the negative actions and the negative activities of your political opponent is punching below the belt, then there's absolutely no way for. And there again, I don't care if you're a conservative, if you're a Misesian libertarian, if you're a classical liberal. I don't care if you're just kind of a moderate, middle of the
Yeah,
road libertarian type. If you're a hardcore conservative who doesn't recognize the Republican Party anymore, if you think that you cannot punch below the belt in a political campaign and call out the bad acts and the unethical and crooked behavior of your opponent, then you might as well just continue to vote for the lesser of two evils for the rest of your life, because it's just going to be the same all the time. And I, like Wes, like, I don't ever want to hear you say that you don't think you stand a chance in this, because I think if you actually start hitting this crap harder and be damned to what the Republican infrastructure says, because
yeah,
if they're not going to support you, they're not going to support you. If
right,
the main party's not going to support you, who cares? But
right,
Nathan Wiesenberg got elected.
yeah,
Yeah, Nathan
yeah,
Wiesenberg got elected. Shane Mecklin got elected. Walter Hudson got elected, and he
yeah.
wasn't. He
He's a
wasn't.
lion.
He's a
He's a great
like,
guy.
he's he and I are good friends. We've crossed swords on
Wow.
a few things. But he got elected at a time when people were saying, "Look, we're not going to have anybody else like that. We had enough with Mortensen. We're not going to get any more of that." Like, Wes, like, if you think you're going to lose, you've got nothing to lose
Right,
except
right.
for your truth. And when I say
Yeah,
your truth, of course, I don't mean you have your own truth, but if the only way for you to stand a chance to win, you still lose, then you have to sell out the truth. Then why bother? Go out
right,
swinging.
right,
Damage him as
right.
bad as you can. As
Yeah,
bad as you can.
I feel like it's the New York Times versus Sullivan, that public discourse is meant to be rigorous and involved, and it's you're not
Yes.
supposed to like
Thank
me, and
you
I'm not supposed
for
to like you. And come
making a
on, bring
reference that you and I and no one else will get.
let's hope that everybody include a link in the comments below or the description below to New York Times versus Sullivan, because they want us to shut up and sit on our hands and be nice people and be reasonable people, and you're being ripped off. Your value, your lifeblood, when you add up what you take home in your paycheck at the end of the day, I think I make on average about $20 an hour. Maybe if it depends how much overtime I do. So after deductions, I take home about $10 or $12 an hour. So it's about half. I mean, it depends on
Yeah,
how much I,
50% of your paycheck, because you're
yeah,
in much the same boat as I am.
right,
50% of your paycheck is coming out through taxes.
right, right.
You want me to play nice?
That's our happiness right there. That's our life, liberty, and
Yeah,
that's our pursuit of
pursuit of
happiness is
happiness.
our money. And they take it out of us, out of our they take our lifeblood is what they do. And I'm hoping that this message will resonate. I don't think it's negative, but I just don't think that the young people hear it yet of Rochester. They're like, oh, Republicans, we hate Republicans. We're supposed to hate Republicans. You know what? I've got a lot of problems with the Republicans. Don't tell anybody, but you know what I'm saying. I
You
got
just
a
told all
lot of
five of
issues
them.
with it. I'll give you here's an example on my table to do show and tell. Here, these are fundraiser requests from the GOP of the state of Minnesota. Each one of these costs money. So at a time when the GOP is running out of money, they're sending all of these. There's my address. Everybody knows my address now, but they send you these fundraiser requests, and they need more money. How about give us some? I mean, I don't want to rain down hellfire on myself. But they should bring some energy and some ideas, and then they wouldn't need so much money. Let's get in there. Forget about the money.
That fits into what I've been telling people for a long time, and that's the Republicans want to lose. The Minnesota GOP and the GOP in general wants to lose. They're controlled. You know, you and I have had some interesting conversations about controlled op over the years of knowing each other, and accusations have been thrown out about you, and accusations have been thrown out about me. Like, I think at one time we were both being accused of being controlled opposition.
Yeah, somebody said I was a jihadi. I was a stealth jihadi, and I was like,
"What?
I don't even understand that." I was. I'm a jihadi. Have you not met me? I don't want to talk about Islam tonight.
The problem, though, is the Republican Party, especially in Minnesota, by and large, is controlled opposition. They have a role to play. They have a role to play, and they're more than content to play it, even if it means they lose. Because when they lose an election, they could go out and campaign harder, Daddy. That's what it is. And when I mean campaign, I mean beg for money. That's what they do.
Beg for money.
And if they start winning, then people stop giving money because they feel like everything's in hand. Look, we've won some races, and we can't do too much, because if we do too much, then we can't have these full-time positions and paid positions, and that's why you're getting mailer after mailer after mailer asking for more and more money for different things. And I bet there's been little talk, if any, about funding your campaign against Andy.
Well, interestingly, I mean, I'm getting a good number of PCRs coming in. I don't want to reveal too much about that, but I've gotten good support of late since I got the endorsement. I've gotten good support from people, and what some people didn't realize is that the first person they put up, it's very complicated, but I've been a little bit pleasantly surprised, and I've had to thank some party people here locally for the level of support I have gotten. I want to be gracious, and I haven't participated in some of that fighting that's gone on, revolving around the Otter Tail County stuff, because as I said to Wendy, after that initial stuff, I wasn't following it, and I wasn't aware of that stuff. So I left it alone, and she said, I appreciate you speaking to me, Wes. You don't need to do this in Albert Lea. I said, thank you, because I wouldn't know it's just going to be a negative for me to get involved with this stuff, fighting against the chair of the state party and whatnot. So, people understood, and Wendy understood, and then Brenda Hineker and the others understood why I was not going to participate with any of that stuff that went on in Albert Lea. So I was able to walk away from that and, leave it alone, because I want to bring energy against the Democrats. I mean, this is kind of a culture war. I thank you for putting up that weslund.org thing, because the culture war is real, and I like the artwork of that website. I like the design and the look of it, because it's very stark, and it looks like film noir, and it looks like a guy noir. It's
That's very fancy. I don't know who you know, but they do good work.
They are an artist. The person is a genius when it comes to messaging, and I'm very lucky to have that person as a contact, and that the artwork for every aspect of the signs and all of the other pamphlets, it's just genius level. The coloring, I thought it was too stark, and I there's something about taking the colors of the enemy and co-opting it, that appeals to me as can I drop some bona fides here? But I'm a Native American Indian, somewhat a percentage, not enough to get some casino cash, but
start calling you Elizabeth.
Well, funny. I often joke that I'm definitely more Native American Indian than Senator Elizabeth Warren. As I use that joke a lot, but
I have socks that are more Native American Indian than Senator Elizabeth Warren.
there's something to be said for you take the uniform of your enemy. That's what scalping was all about. But you take the uniform of your enemy and you wear it, or you adopt. You take their epaulet, or you take their insignia, and you wear that. You wear their jacket, and it's something
It's
about
taking their power.
It's taking their power. So using the red and the black of Antifa, or what the far left would think are their colors, and stealing that away from them, is a way of saying to anarcho-syndicalism that you suck. And
which was probably the most profound thing that was been said all night. You suck. That's what
right. Yeah. By the way, one of my heroes is on this T-shirt. I mean,
gee, who would that be?
Well, this is the kid who stood up to a Native American. Well, he was at the Lincoln Memorial. You remember Nick
Sandman?
Nick Sandman, and he was there, and he's kind of a hero of mine. When I saw what he did, I was inspired by what he did on that day, and I took courage. Like if a young man can do this, like he was 16 or 17 at the time, and he was very serene, and I've taken that. I just think of him when I go to school board meetings or to city council meetings or county commissioners meetings to speak. I just think of Nick Sandman. What would Nick do?
You know, the funny thing, like you are constantly in school board meetings and city council meetings in Rochester, which for people who don't know, and I know this seems really local, but I want people to hear that one of the reasons I wanted you on was your local activism, because that's what like my channel members, I call them act localists, because I'm trying to inspire people no matter where they are, whether they're in Minnesota or any other state. What matters the most is thinking locally and acting locally.
Yeah.
And it's starting at that level that then trains people up to be able to do things like run for their house or run for their Senate. If we could just get people to stop concentrating on president for just one cycle, seriously.
Right.
Because it would put the president back in their titular figurehead position that they're supposed to be in. They're not supposed to have any freaking power. They're not. The president was not intended to have any power at all.
Yep.
Not the way that we look at, the most powerful man in the world. Like, no, like Wes and I should be the most powerful people in the world. And not because Wes and I are smarter than everybody else, but that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because there could be people who are in Tennessee or who are in Florida, and you were going through all the states earlier. Or it could be that person in Australia or somebody in Germany who watches and says, wait, if those two yahoos from that place I've never heard of before, can have an impact on their community by acting, doing something locally, then so can I. And that's why this conversation has been so important to me, because you're at like every city council, for the most part, you're at every city council meeting, you're at the school board meetings. I have been, I've been to school board meetings in Dover and Yoda. I've been to Rochester. I've been to Albert Lee. I've been to Owatonna. I've been to Northfield. I've been doing things in my own town, and I look around and I hear people complain about everything that's happening in their town. Like I challenge anybody to go to we have BS spotted in Rochester. The page on Facebook, and then we have Spotted in Rochester, and both of those pages, one's for people who are less politically safe and one for people who are totally politically safe, but it is people complaining about how bad things are, and just one, they take the gloves off, and the other one they don't as much. And I'm like, if you people, if you individuals would be upset, go ahead, complain publicly. I encourage that, but go and do something.
Right.
Go and actually show up to your city council. Phil, you live in a town of 2,600 people like I do. and you're pissed off about the grass ordinance in your town, like what just kind of happened here back at the beginning of May in my town, go take 30 of your friends to a city council meeting and watch the looks on their faces when you show up.
Right.
Because they're not used to that. And all of a sudden, they're going to get in line real damn fast. But instead, we sit around and we complain, and we never take action. We never act locally.
They want you to be a spectator. I think that's like Noam Chomsky said, it's that you give your consent to be governed, and that the electoral process is all about manufacturing consent. And then you're supposed to go back to slurping your corn syrup and watching sports ball. And then you're not a participant. So if they can breed that passivity into you so that you're not engaged with civic discourse and make that all seem like a mystery. Oh, by the way, they don't care if you complain about Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or something 1,000 miles away. You're allowed to do that around the water cooler. You can bitch, but you're not supposed to know what's going on in your vineyard, in your garden. You're not supposed to, where you're rooted and planted, you're not supposed to have any engagement with politics. You're not supposed to notice the RPU is increasing the rates, or the your Rochester Transit Authority is owned by a French company that was 40% owned by the German Rethmann Group, founded in 1940. You're not supposed to know that the Minnesota energy rates are going up. You're not supposed to come to a meeting and say, hey, stop, we don't want a 24-year increase, extension of the sales tax on top of an increase. We shut down a school board referendum this year. I'm told that hasn't been done since the 1970s. And myself and a small cohort, like a team of people, we fanned out, and we were under bridges and behind trees, and we stopped a school board referendum. And of course that, it's just one of they're coming out. They increased.
They're coming at you again, though.
They're coming back in August, so they're going to try it again. And but they don't think you're supposed to notice or participate. So if they can get you to roll over and be passive, and then fight with your neighbor and spy on people next to you and turn other people in, we're like rats in a cage right now in Minnesota. And things are getting really tight. And I want young people to be able to afford a home and have a yard and be able to raise a family and have the things that I didn't have. And I want young people to really be able to go to a school board and say, hey, stop talking to kids about this stuff. Why don't you teach them how to balance their checkbook? No, we're gay today. No, wait a minute. Wait, stop that for a second. Teach him how to do his taxes. I said we're gay. Just lay off. Sorry for the dumb joke, but
it's not a dumb joke. It's exactly what's happening, and I love the fact that you use voices, because I use voices too especially when I'm solo.
Got to make sure that it's distance, because don't want to give them any ideas, because they'll keep it up further. But no, we want people to be engaged and really get involved. Sorry.
So just a couple of real quick questions. Are they running somebody at you in a primary?
Oh no, they aren't. Good. Everybody's been very gracious. There are a couple people making trouble behind the scenes who are just kind of typical. I mean, it's the same individuals that bother everybody behind their backs. So it's not like it's anything unusual. It just is what it is. And but no resistance from the Democrat side, really. Not really any. I mean, not yet.
Well, of course, they'll wait for the Republicans to eat their own. That's what they're.
It's Sun Tzu style. Why should they interfere when we're going after each other? But
any plans to try and get Andy to debate?
I don't really have any hope of that. And I wouldn't do it at the Rochester Public Library. I won't do it at the library. I want a much, much larger venue. I'm thinking a park. I want to be like on stage with Andy at the place where they do the Sunday concerts down by the riverside.
I would pay to watch that. And I'm poor.
And that way everybody can come. That way everybody can be there. And, and I'm sure, look, you don't want me to say that I think I'm going to lose, but I know Andy has a machinery behind him. He has money behind him, and the GOP is
Stranger
fractured.
things
So,
have happened, Wes.
well, probably something I would do is just do it for a couple of years and try to train my replacement, and then go ahead and retire. Because what I really want, I want to just read some books and theorize, and I want to go back to gardening and taking care of I have a lot of gardening that I like to do. It's my pastime. It's something deep in me to have a garden.
It's
I
where
saw
you
my
find your
grandparents
solace.
always did that. We were always potato diggers. We were never rich hoity-toity people. We were always you know we were
No,
always shit on our shoes kind of people. I have a foot in the city and I have a foot in the countryside. So I'm a little bit of what's that Donnie and Marie song? A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're agrarian urbanite.
Yeah, and which is perfect for this brave new world because we're all gonna be
We're
like
all gonna need to learn some
population.
farming skills real fast. I'm telling you. It's like,
I never thought I'd live to see the day when having a garden was considered a extremist activity. So
hey,
that's just
you're talking to a guy that may or may not have illegal backyard chickens. So
oh
I have an extremist perspective of my own. Hey, I really appreciate your time tonight. I think we've definitely talked all not around things. Uh,
yeah.
we've talked a lot about how you ended up where you are, and so real quick, just one more time, tell everybody where they can find you, and then I'll let you go so you can go dream
Sure.
about being in your garden, and I'll close us out.
Thank you very much, and thanks for this opportunity. And look at the website at weslund.org, and there's another website coming soon. And check out Facebook, Wes Lund. Some of my live videos are there if you can find them. Some of them are deep sixed and memory hold, but a lot of my ideas are thought streams and ramblings. But I think I know more. I think people can know me more than they know anything about Andy Smith at this point, my opponent, and I haven't been shy about talking and putting myself out there. And I appreciate this opportunity. I would give I would give you a lot of thanks for having me on. This has been really relaxing and fun. It's been a good ride.
Well,
So
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I
So
worried about it all day. I was really
most
nervous.
people are like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I was there all day. I was wondering.
No. No, you're a natural at this, so I really appreciate your time, Wes. And it's been a long time coming, and I hope that your friends and your fans and
Yeah.
I know you got a whole group of groupies that like follow you around, so hopefully they'll at least watch. So
I think this is my first interview. Usually I'm the one kind of asking questions and letting the other person speak. And you've done a really good job of drawing me out and getting me to feel comfortable so I would talk. So thank
well,
you.
you're good. You're a natural, so I really appreciate your time. And like I said, you
Thank
go
you.
go go do
Thank
whatever it
you.
is you do at 9:40 at night, and
Thank you.
since you are a closet no a what kind of jihadi? What the,
I forget. I don't know. Probably a Manchurian jihadi. That would make me a Rohingya Muslim.
go
I'm going to get
go.
rounded up and put in a re-education camp. They'll make me to eat pork and drink alcohol. I'll be fine.
That actually sounds like my kind of
That's
re-education
my
camp.
idea of paradise. Yeah.
So
So I would
go
sign up.
get out, get out of here. I'll close this up.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Wes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's been
We'll talk
fun.
soon.
Bye bye.
Wes Lund, ladies and gentlemen, Minnesota House District 25B. Yeah, that's what it is. You can find him at weslund.org. I'm not going to stretch this out real long. I just want to tell everybody thank you for watching. Oh, now I'm seeing Chad. Thanks for stopping in. I love it when you watch because you always ask the right questions. I didn't get a chance to ask him tonight. he sounds like a good man, but good men don't last. And boy, is that not the truth. And that is such a commentary on pretty much a lot of public servant career fields, law enforcement and elected offices as well. Good men do not last. You guys are in for a treat after tonight's show. This being, kind of my TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. You know what you're getting when you come here. But tomorrow night on another episode of Libertarian Lowdown, you guys are going to want to watch, because I've got Ken Silva, who is a writer for Headline News. Or is it how do I want to say Headline USA? He is coming on tomorrow night to talk about some new developments about PatCon and COINTELPRO. These are Intel FBI operations that supposedly ended, but never went away. And Ken broke the news about the FBI basically admitting that we're still running this stuff. And one of the things that I've been talking about with other people and I've been warning people about for a while are groups like the Patriot Front aren't what they appear to be. And Ken has broke that story. He was on the front end of that. And there are other people out there trying to take credit for it, but it was Ken Silva who actually broke that story, did the legwork, did the research, wrote the articles, and got it out there that, hey, these people are not what they're having you believe them to be. And so we're going to have him on, and we might talk a little bit about a project that we might be doing together, kind of a semi-regular series going forward. A little bit. We're going to be talking around that some. So make sure you tune in tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central Time for my conversation for another episode of a Libertarian Lowdown with Ken Silva. It's going to be a very fun conversation. Ken is a fountain of knowledge and just phenomenal at what he does. So be looking for that. If you guys haven't yet, share this out. Tell people to come in, check out the memberships. Membership options. Boy, I haven't been drinking and I sound like I'm slurring. And really think about the conversation with Wes tonight about, what are we as individuals doing to be local activists, and what is it pushing us towards? What are we doing? We got a great activist in the chat tonight, Chad Catter. If you guys haven't seen him in the chat before, we're talking about a guy who stands up to his local state all the time, city, state, and the county state. He's constantly standing up to them. In fact, when he walks in the room, they're like, "Oh crap, we're not going to win this one." And he's very good at what he does. So think locally and act locally. Find sources outside of your normative sources. And if you ever have any questions about the people that I listen to, what I read, what I study, where I get my information, reach out to me, mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. I'm more than happy to send you links to my sources, people that I take information in from. And I think you'd be surprised just how easy it is to be changed in a positive way by just stepping outside of your comfort zones and listening in depth to people that are willing to rock the boat when it comes to the things that we've had kind of foisted on us for our entire lives through government indoctrination centers that we call public schools and the mainstream media and things like Operation Mockingbird, Intel projects operated against the American people by agencies within the federal state. That kind of stuff. It happens. So, my friends, as my sign here from my dear friend and supporter Monica says, "Fight for your liberty." She took my sign off and made it into a sign for me. So that's why I always point at it, because I want everybody to know how important Monica is in that. Fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. And until next time, sick, Semper Tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at